Your arrival here today is not a coincidence. Something deep within you guided your steps toward this message, and that inner guidance deserves your trust. There is a reason you felt drawn to seek clarity at this moment. For a long time, you have been carrying questions in your heart, hoping for a sign powerful enough to bring peace to the uncertainty you have been living with. Much of this journey has been traveled alone. There were moments when you hesitated to share what you felt because you feared others would dismiss it or tell you that you were reading too much into things. Yet despite every doubt and every outside opinion, something inside you continued to speak. Quietly and consistently, it remained present through sleepless nights and moments of reflection, refusing to disappear no matter how hard you tried to ignore it. This feeling was never something you created out of wishful thinking. It comes from a deeper place. Instead of being a burden, it may actually be a message pointing you toward a truth your soul already recognizes. The reason it continues returning is because it originates from a level of awareness beyond ordinary reasoning. Your heart understands something that your conscious mind is still trying to comprehend. For a long time, caution may have encouraged you to suppress what you felt. Past disappointments taught you to protect yourself. You questioned whether such a powerful connection could truly be real. Yet every attempt to silence it only seemed to make it stronger. That is because life is trying to guide you toward a new level of understanding. There is a reason this particular person affects you so deeply. What exists between you feels different from anything you have experienced before. Even when separated by distance or long periods of silence, the connection seems to remain alive beneath the surface. That silence is not empty. It carries reflection, growth, and an invisible exchange that words cannot easily explain. Your intuition continues speaking because your soul often recognizes significance long before logic catches up. This does not feel like a random meeting or an ordinary attraction. It feels more like recognition. Something familiar stirs within you, as though your spirit remembers what your mind struggles to define. The more you try to dismiss it, the more persistent it becomes. Time passes, circumstances change, yet your attention repeatedly returns to the same person. It is as though an unseen force keeps reminding you that this encounter carried a purpose far beyond appearances. You are not imagining these emotions, nor are you disconnected from reality. What you feel rises from a place much deeper than surface desire. When you become still enough to listen inwardly, you begin to realize that this connection touches something essential within your identity and personal journey. Naturally, the mind often reacts with fear. It remembers old pain and attempts to protect you by questioning everything. Doubt becomes a defense mechanism. Yet authentic soul connections frequently reveal themselves through subtle signs that are difficult to manufacture. One of those signs is an unexpected sense of peace. Even during periods when this person is absent from your life, a quiet certainty remains. Somewhere within, you feel that the bond still exists. That inner calm comes from the belief that what is genuinely meant for you cannot be permanently lost. At the same time, this connection serves another purpose. It acts as a mirror. It brings hidden parts of yourself into the light and encourages growth where growth is needed most. It pushes you toward becoming stronger, wiser, and more complete, not for another person, but for yourself. There is a feeling that this relationship carries a deeper purpose, as though an ancient thread continues weaving its way through your life. The persistence of the connection becomes evidence in itself. Temporary attachments usually fade. Obsessions eventually lose their intensity. Yet this feeling remains, surviving logic, distance, and the passing of time. You may wonder why, if this connection is so meaningful, there has been so much separation. Why has silence lasted so long? Why has the journey felt so difficult? These questions are understandable. They weigh heavily on the heart. But destiny rarely unfolds in a direct or predictable way. Some experiences require preparation before their purpose can fully emerge. What has been planted deeply within the soul is not easily erased by fear, time, or physical distance. Sometimes two people are separated because growth must happen individually before they can truly meet each other on equal ground. Healing, self-discovery, and personal transformation often take place behind the scenes, hidden beneath everyday life. Although the process may seem confusing, it serves a purpose much larger than what can currently be seen. Your encounter with this person was not merely an event. It was an awakening. It opened a door inside you and invited you to know yourself more deeply. Even when your rational mind tries to dismiss it, something within continues to whisper that the story is not over. What you are experiencing may not be a conclusion at all. It may simply be an intermission, a chapter of preparation taking place beyond your immediate view. This period of separation is helping build the strength, wisdom, and emotional maturity necessary for whatever comes next. Both of you have changed since your paths first crossed. The distance itself has become part of the transformation. There is a future version of both of you that life can already see, even if you cannot. That is why this message arrives now, to remind you not to mistake temporary quietness for permanent loss. Real love is rarely simple. It often moves through cycles of learning, growth, and refinement. The confusion you feel may be the space where fear and intuition collide as deeper truths gradually reveal themselves. Distance does not always mean absence. Sometimes it means alignment. Life may currently be clearing old wounds, unhealthy patterns, and unresolved lessons from both paths. Had everything happened sooner, before either of you were ready, the intensity might have created instability rather than lasting connection. In many ways, this pause acts as protection. It provides room for each of you to become whole within yourselves before attempting to build something together. It is almost as if an agreement exists on the soul level, a silent understanding that both individuals must grow separately before they can truly stand side by side. This stage encourages you to develop a stronger relationship with yourself. It teaches you that love should never become a prison. Instead, it should complement the life you have already built within. The distance challenges you to face fears of rejection, loneliness, abandonment, and self-worth. Through those challenges, you are discovering a deeper sense of completeness. If love returns, it can then arrive from a healthier and more balanced foundation. As you continue evolving, the energy between you seems to move toward greater harmony. And while you focus on your own transformation, remember that the other person may be undergoing a similar process. Their journey may not look the same as yours. Their awakening may appear as confusion, avoidance, hesitation, or emotional struggle. What seems like indifference on the surface may actually be evidence of an inner battle taking place beneath their defenses. Sometimes people withdraw not because they feel nothing, but because they feel more than they know how to handle. And until they learn to face those fears, their actions may not fully reflect what exists within their heart. They are reaching a point where pretending to feel nothing is becoming harder to maintain. The old story they told themselves that the timing was wrong, that it was just a passing connection, that it didn't mean as much as it felt, no longer holds the same power. Something inside them is shifting. The distractions they once relied on to avoid deeper emotions are starting to fade, and in that absence, memories of you are becoming clearer, sharper, and more difficult to ignore. Their silence is not the absence of feeling. It is the pressure of feelings they tried to contain. What they pushed down has not disappeared. It has only settled deeper. And now, instead of staying hidden, it is rising into awareness in ways they can no longer fully control. The ego, which once helped them maintain distance and emotional detachment, is slowly losing its grip. The inner conflict is becoming louder than the excuses they used to rely on. This is where transformation often begins, not in clarity, but in inner struggle. An internal unraveling takes place where old pride, defensive patterns, and emotional avoidance start breaking apart. What no longer aligns with their truth begins to collapse from within. This process is not gentle, but it is necessary. It clears space for honesty to emerge where denial once lived. Both of you are approaching a subtle but powerful shift, a moment where confusion starts giving way to understanding. There may come a point where staying apart feels more painful than the fear of reconnecting. That threshold changes everything. When it is crossed, decisions are no longer guided by avoidance, but by recognition of what the connection truly is. If a return happens from that space, it will not be based on nostalgia or temporary loneliness. It will come from something deeper and more grounded. It will be the result of internal acceptance, an understanding that what was felt cannot simply be dismissed or replaced. Any return shaped by this kind of awakening carries a different energy. It feels more honest, more open, and less protected by emotional walls that once stood firmly in place. When that shift arrives, it does not feel confusing. It feels direct. It feels clear in a way that is difficult to argue against. There is a sense of recognition that cuts through uncertainty and brings things into focus. But such outcomes are never rushed. Alignment does not respond to pressure or expectation. It unfolds only when both individuals are internally capable of holding what the connection requires. This is why the current phase exists. It is not empty time. It is preparation. Your role within this period is not to remain in anxious waiting, but to enter a state of readiness. Readiness does not mean anticipation filled with fear or longing. It means becoming emotionally steady, balanced, and grounded within yourself. It means no longer being dependent on any specific outcome in order to feel complete. Letting go of resentment, disappointment, and emotional heaviness is part of this process. Not because what happened was insignificant, but because carrying those emotions keeps you tied to the past version of the connection. Releasing them allows you to stand in a clearer state of self-respect and inner strength. Forgiveness here is not about excusing distance or silence. It is about understanding that both separation and uncertainty have played a role in shaping who you are becoming. Even the painful parts have contributed to your awareness, your maturity, and your emotional clarity. As you stabilize within yourself, you stop approaching the situation from a place of lack. Instead, you begin to stand in a state of wholeness. From that space, anything that is aligned with your growth can enter your life without confusion or desperation. Meanwhile, the other person is also undergoing their own internal process, even if it is not visible to you. What may appear on the surface as indifference or emotional distance can often be a reflection of internal resistance. The feelings they tried to suppress are not gone, they are being confronted in a more direct way. Silence, in this sense, becomes their inner battlefield. It is where unresolved emotions, fear of vulnerability, and old protective instincts come face to face with what they truly feel. This inner tension forces reflection. And reflection over time leads to change. If they remain distant, it is not necessarily because the connection has weakened. It may be because the emotional weight of it is finally becoming undeniable. What was once easier to avoid is now becoming harder to escape. Every memory, every unspoken feeling, every moment shared begins to carry more significance as time passes. Distance has a way of revealing what closeness sometimes hides. It removes distractions and brings underlying emotions into focus. In that space, both clarity and discomfort can grow at the same time. But this discomfort is often what leads to emotional honesty. Nothing about this process is wasted. Even the uncertainty has purpose. Every phase of separation contributes to personal evolution, whether it is visible or not. What feels like waiting is actually transformation unfolding quietly beneath the surface. The universe, in this interpretation, is not delaying anything without reason. It is allowing space for both of you to become more emotionally equipped for whatever outcome is meant to unfold. Without that inner growth, any reconnection would risk repeating old cycles rather than creating something new. This is why the emphasis always returns to your own growth. The more grounded you become, the less fear shapes your choices. The more whole you feel internally, the less you rely on external validation to define your emotional state. This is where stability begins. From that stability, life unfolds with more ease. You stop forcing meaning and start recognizing alignment. You stop chasing answers and start observing patterns with clarity. And from that place, whatever is meant for you can move toward you naturally, without pressure or confusion. At this stage, both paths, yours and theirs, are moving through refinement. Old emotional patterns are being challenged, defenses are weakening, inner truths are becoming harder to ignore. What once felt uncertain is slowly moving toward definition. A turning point is forming, not because of time alone, but because of readiness. At some point, the emotional resistance that once kept distance in place begins to soften. When that happens, clarity replaces confusion and action becomes possible where hesitation once existed. If that moment arrives, it will not come from emptiness or impulse. It will come from realization, a quiet acknowledgement that what was felt cannot remain denied forever. And in that recognition, emotional barriers begin to dissolve. Until then, the focus remains simple. Continue becoming. Continue healing. Continue strengthening your sense of self so that whatever unfolds next meets you in your fullest form. You are not imagining this connection. You are not clinging to an illusion, and you are not chasing something without meaning. What you feel carries truth for you, and that truth is not stagnant. It is creating motion on both sides of this bond. Something is shifting. Emotions are rising from places that were once buried. Awareness is expanding where confusion used to live. Slowly, clarity is beginning to take shape, and deeper truth is surfacing from beneath layers of doubt, silence, and uncertainty. Everything now seems to be moving toward a moment that holds significance, a turning point that feels as though it was already set in motion long before you became aware of it. A decisive shift is approaching. The entire process, the distance, the silence, the inner awakening, the emotional withdrawal, and even the ego's breakdown has not been random. It has all been part of a larger unfolding. Every stage has contributed to preparing something meaningful, something that feels as though it has always existed just beyond visible understanding. This coming turning point will not feel unclear or fragmented. It will not arrive as something vague that requires interpretation or constant analysis. It will not be a small sign that leaves you questioning yourself. Instead, it will feel direct, unmistakable, and grounded in clarity. When destiny moves, it does not always whisper in uncertainty. At the right moment, it reveals itself with a sense of certainty that quiets confusion rather than deepening it. It becomes difficult to ignore because it carries weight and recognition rather than speculation. Whatever arrives will not be accidental. It will not be born from coincidence or fleeting emotion. It will come from a place of inner change, where a soul that once resisted begins to soften, where running no longer feels possible, and where avoidance becomes heavier than truth itself. There comes a point when silence is no longer protection, but pressure. When distance stops feeling safe and starts feeling unbearable. That is often the moment where inner transformation begins to reach the surface. If a return happens from that space, it will not be shallow or uncertain. It will not be driven by loneliness or temporary emotion. It will come from understanding, from awareness, from the realization that what was felt cannot simply be dismissed or replaced. Such a return carries a different energy. It feels honest. It feels exposed. It feels as though the walls once used for protection have started to fall away. But this kind of alignment does not happen because one person is ready. It happens only when both are capable of holding what the connection truly requires. This is why the pause existed. This is why distance was necessary. It was never empty. It was preparatory. You were not being held back. You were being refined. This stage was not about waiting for someone else. It was about becoming fully grounded within yourself. It was about developing emotional stability, clarity, and inner strength that does not depend on external outcomes. Now, as movement begins to feel closer, your role is not to wait in tension, but to become receptive in balance. Readiness is not anxious anticipation. It is inner alignment. It is emotional steadiness. It is the ability to remain whole, regardless of what unfolds. To truly be ready means releasing whatever still keeps you bound to fear, old pain, resentment, and unresolved emotional weight. Because anything still rooted in lack can distort what is meant to arrive in wholeness. If the same insecurities remain unhealed, they risk reactivating old cycles. And that is not what this process is guiding you toward. This period has been designed to break those patterns, not repeat them. Let go of the need to control how things must unfold. Release the pressure of imagined timelines and fixed expectations. Stop trying to script the future in detail, because attachment to outcome often blocks the natural flow of life. What is truly meant for you does not require force. It arrives when resistance dissolves. Alongside this, release the bitterness that may still be quietly held by the ego. The ego often preserves old pain as protection, but that protection becomes a barrier. Bitterness does not guard the heart, it closes it. Forgiveness here is not about excusing behavior. It is about understanding the role every experience has played in your evolution. Even silence, even distance, even uncertainty has contributed to your current strength. Forgiveness is ultimately liberation. It frees you from carrying emotional weight that no longer serves your growth. As this energetic shift continues, remain centered within yourself. You may notice subtle signs becoming more frequent. You may feel moments of intuition becoming sharper or more noticeable. You may experience meaningful coincidences that feel aligned rather than random. Even so, protect your inner peace. That peace is not separate from the journey, it is the foundation of it. Without it, clarity becomes harder to recognize. Understand that this process is not only shaping the other person's path, it is also shaping yours. You are not simply waiting for a return. You are being prepared for whatever form your next chapter takes. The greatest transformation in this entire experience is not external, it is internal. It is the evolution of your awareness, your emotional maturity, your self-respect, and your ability to see life with greater clarity. These qualities are what remain with you, regardless of outcome. They become the foundation for everything that follows. You are not being delayed. You are being elevated. You are being guided into a deeper understanding of yourself, your emotions, and the patterns that once shaped your relationships. And now, as the weight of confusion begins to fade, you can move forward with a lighter sense of being. The uncertainty that once felt heavy is slowly loosening its hold. Remain open, but grounded. Patient, but not waiting in fear. Trusting, but not dependent. Most importantly, stay connected to the growth you have already achieved. Trust the strength you have built. Trust the clarity you have gained. Trust the wisdom that has emerged through experience. And allow whatever is meant for you to unfold in its own timing, without force, without resistance, and without fear.